I just give you an introduction about FWC. Lata ma'am have joined us for this meeting, and it's a great honor to have her here. This is actually like a Business Pro meeting. Every alternative Saturdays we conduct this meeting. The other alternative Saturdays we go for networking and transactions. And this Saturday, like we have, we had this opportunity of talking to Lata ma'am. Few introductions, like we have just spoken to her last week. We met her in our office. She gave appointment immediately. That's a great thing. Like it's a fortunately, like we could able to have her meet her and all. And we just did some research. We collected few pointers, and there are lot many things like we found about her, and many articles about her, and a few important pointers I just wanted to share with you everyone. Her achievements and all, like it's so like it's very long. I just covered in 3 pages, then I got it into 1 page pointer because I can't take more than 5 minutes of my time. So Lata ma'am, her father is into railway department, and she traveled across India. She stayed in Nagpur, Calcutta. She did her CA and her college in Nagpur. She settled down back in Calcutta. She came back to Chennai, and she got married to Pandirajan sir, and she came back to Chennai in 1992. She joined Mafo, and this one, like it's they wanted to do something for the Tamil community and Indian community, and this is HR is a very new area. There is any risk, the entrepreneurs would think twice to take. And she says, like she's from Shivagasi, and she felt like a lot of people are struggling in their this employment, getting opportunities, work, everything, yearning life, struggling, surviving, everything. That was the inspiration for her, and she started along with Pandirajan sir in 1992. In 1998, Mafoi grown so big. In 8 years' time, she could share equities to people, and she returned 60%. It's actually a great achievement at that point of time. She doesn't, I could also see like she struggled a lot initially with the bank support, everything. Like she just able to overcome that, and she tied up with in 2004. She tied up with a company called Vadier. And in 2004, 2005, she got opportunity working with Apple. And I'm very proud, ma'am. Like I'm also from the same industry. Very proud, Tamilian, you worked for entire Apple setup in India and entire HSBC setup in India. Like it's actually a very great achievement, ma'am. I know like how hard it is at that point of time without Naukri or anything. And 2007, Randstad, it's a second HR company across the globe, and it took over Vadier. In 2011, after 20 years of journey, she sold her stakes to Randstad, and she was also supporting Pandirajan sir to work, to get an opportunity in this Tamil Nadu cabinet. They worked so hard. I saw a lot of videos. They campaigned together. It's very difficult, talking to people, getting to the floor, getting to the field, getting their, their emotions, their problems, everything. It's too good. Like too many videos in YouTube. It's very inspiring. It's very inspiring, ma'am. Actually, then in 2000, after 2011, before 12 years, they have started Mafoi Foundation, another organization called Surnamal. And these two organizations did wonders in Tamil Nadu. And herself alone, like, she influenced 60,000 women entrepreneurs. She worked with a lot of SHG groups from to the ground level, tailoring, everything, like, every single, the entrepreneurship, she could able to teach, women entrepreneurs. She taught, and around 60,000 women entrepreneurs got opportunities through her, and she influenced 8,000 kids' life, the underprivileged kids' life. She included a lot of, the sports side, which like a lot of NGOs on failing to meet in this area, and boxing, athletes, and football are the areas like, she influenced kids, and they've got a lot of gold medals. This is also an inspiring story. An NGO supporting, the boxing, and they're winning national awards is very inspiring, that I could see. And she was also, again, very proud to announce she's a Rotarian, and she served as the president of Rotarian Club. And other three, major women business forum she was heading. In FICCI, like there is a ladies wing. There is also like a very different one. Like we are all learning from you, ma'am. FICCI Ladies Forum, or ladies organization, she was leading, and IWN, Indian Women Network Forum, she was heading, and she was also an active, lead in MMA, and Hindustan Chamber of Commerce, she was heading, and she has given like more than 55 franchises of Mafo, and 55 franchises is so huge, and one single organization giving so much of franchises and developing so much of entrepreneurs in India is, ma'am, hats off, for that achievement. And on a healthcare area also, she has tested like 1,800 kids, and she was treating like 400 kids were treated on the eye care side. These are the achievements, like what I could see. And even with Tech Mahindra, they have tied up a skill-based development. They have worked together, and too many finance organizations like Shriram Finance, Sundaram Finance. She placed people there, and so many things. Like I've jotted all the points. It came to 4 pages. I could collect only the 4 things, like one page, which I could see major achievements, really contributing, really making a difference for Tamil community. Ma'am, thanks a lot on behalf of Tamil Nadu, and for us, all of us. Over to you, ma'am. We just wanted to
thank you
about your journey, ma'am. Yeah.
Thank you, Vidya. Thank you so much for this wonderful introduction. And a very good morning to all of you. I think it's wonderful being with all of you today, this morning. And thanks, Pala and Vidya, coming over to my office and inviting me, I think. And of course, thanks to Ashok sir, whom I always look up to. I know, as Vidya said, I think he's like a father figure. I think he's like a father figure to many people. And so I'm really happy to be speaking to all of you. Yeah, so yeah, morning. So I thought like, yeah, sure, Vidya and Bala were sharing with me that most of you are entrepreneurs and spread across. So they wanted me to first share the story of our journey. And then I thought like I will talk about this current situation. I know like it's a very unprecedented one, a very new normal as they call it. And so as entrepreneurs, what is very important at this point in time for us to really do? So let me start with Mafa's story as such. As Vidya said, I think Pandirajan and me started Mafa on the 15th of August, 1992. Okay, 15th of August, especially because both of us are very nationalist in our own views. So we thought like 15th August would be the right date to start the organization. And yeah, I'm a chartered accountant by profession. And of course, Pandirajan being a personal professional, we thought we'll do something different. And as many of you know, that in the early 90s, even the word human resources was not there. At that time, people used to call it personnel management. And it was more a kind of an admin role. And so both of us, like, somewhere when we used to travel outside, we used to see human resources being a very important discipline. And that's what really, and a few other incidents which really triggered starting of MAFA. So why MAFA? What MAFA? Like why the word MAFA? I think like MAFA is a French word which means I give my word. Ma is mine and foi is word. So we wanted again something very unique and very global sounding. And why I'm saying this is I think it's very important. It really helped us a lot. I think entrepreneurs, I think right from day one, we need to learn to think big. It's very important. What we think actually happens. And so I think this global outlook That's what we really decided. From the first year, we said like Marfa will go global. And that time, like many people were laughing because like 92 is like it was a very different world. Okay, we were not even liberalized. So you can imagine like we saying, we'll go global. And I still remember like so for the first few days, we put together a business plan. And of course, me being a chartered accountant, of course, I put together a nice jazzy business plan. I went and met a bank manager, nationalized bank manager, to ask for a 1 lakh overdraft. And I remember he asked me 100 questions maybe and asked, what is HR? He didn't understand what is HR. And he asked me, what is the collateral which you'll give me? So I said, like, I don't have collateral. Honestly, we both, Pandirajan and me, started MAFA with just 60,000 rupees at that point in time, which was our savings. Both of us being first generation entrepreneurs. And so I said, I don't have a collateral. So collateral will be the people who work for us, because this business involves people. And he nicely said that, I'm so sorry, like, I can give loans even to buy some, bullock or whatever it is. But, to really run a HR company, we can't give loan. I mean, people will run away. How can I have my collateral? Things like that. So that was the understanding of HR at that point in time. And yeah, I think we grew slowly and with all its ups and downs, as always in a business as such. And there were some very good moments also. And at the same time, there are lots of issues. I remember in 92, um, I think we were initially like, since we had some connects with the Gulf and with the Far East, like Singapore, we were initially sending a lot of designers, piping designers and engineers for the oil and gas sector. And at that time, Gulf was booming, 92, 93. And so that was the main business as such, sending them there. And we were supposed to send the first year, 92. We worked hard, put together a small team initially. And we were supposed to send around 20 designers and engineers to Dubai. And everything was done. Some of them had even left their jobs, waiting for the visas and all that. And that was around November 92. And suddenly, December 8th, 1992, we had Babri Masjid. Okay, the whole thing collapsed. No visas to the Gulf. And that it was a nightmarish experience at that point in time, because we felt so responsible. Some of them had left their jobs from very rural areas. And I still remember that 2 months. And we literally, nurtured them, held them. We paid their salaries that way. And of course, it was not under our control. So by, I think, January, I think everything loosened up a little and we got the visas, and then we sent them off. I still remember both of us went all the way to the airport to see off the people and all that. So such was the, so I mean, like an entrepreneur, I think we faced a lot of ups and downs. But I think looking back now, there are certain things I think which really helped us to grow, and not only to grow fast that way. And so, if I have to really look at it, I've always looked at the organization in two different ways that way. But both the things are very important. Okay, one is the business side, and one is the institutional side of an organization that way. Okay, so most of the time, what happens is we are really busy, really growing our business, that we forget about the institutional side. Okay, when I say institutional side, it's the people side that way. Okay, so I think both are critical and both have to grow hand in hand in that sense. Okay, so it's very important to have a good team, to nurture a good team. They have to grow, because if employees don't grow, organization does not grow that way. And in fact, I don't even call them employees. The word employee, I don't use at all in MAFA. We call them members of MAFA. Okay, why? Because like I personally feel employer-employee relationship is very transient, very temporary, whereas membership is more permanent. like you are a member of a family. Wherever you are, you remain a member of a family. Okay, that's something which is nobody can take it away from you. Same way I tell our people that, once you join MAFA, you are a member of MAFA. You may leave MAFA afterwards. It's okay. That doesn't matter. Okay, you may go into a different system, but you will remain part of the MAFA family that way. So in that sense, I think we've had so many of our members who worked with us, who've gone out, doing well, so much, so well today that way. Okay, so that is institution, because I always feel that every organization is a living organism. Okay, it's just not table chairs and people just coming and transacting and going. Okay, so it is a living organism as such. So we need to be very, very careful as to how do we really grow this institution. So I think when it comes to business, I always think three words which are very critical: the tripod of business, as they call it, the scale, scope, and depth. That way. Okay. So it's any business, especially I think in the growing years, all three legs or pillars are extremely critical. You need to have a good scale, you need to have a good scope, you need to have different, because it's just doing one thing may not be that good, because like suppose something happens, what would happen, what will go happen to the business. So I think the scope of business, like for instance, we did recruitment, we did permanent recruitment, then we decided I think only permanent recruitment alone will not take us far, so we started doing staffing, then we started doing HR consulting. Okay, so you always, I think in business, you need to keep balancing in that sense. So I think different products also very critical. So that's the scope. Scale is, of course, as you know, I mean, how quickly you grow. So I think every year have targets. I mean, outperform your targets. Okay. So initially we used to say like 100% every year. And people say, how do we grow 100%? But it was possible that way. Okay. So I think this growth as such is a very important value. And I always say, like I was giving you this example of this bank manager. And so right from the beginning, we always thought we have to grow large. Because why? I think out of my own experience, I can say the same bank, like this happened, as I said, was in 92 when, they refused to give me a 1 lakh overdraft. And in 2000, okay, which was just 8 years, by the time, of course, we had grown to a certain extent and all that, the same bank. Okay. In fact, like, I mean, I know it was Canara Bank, it was a nationalized bank. The same bank, through its venture capital arm, they have something called Can Ventures, Canara Bank Ventures. So Can Ventures came and invested in MAFA, giving us more than 300 times as such. Okay. Within 8 years, we could do this. And I always say it's so ironical that, when you're small, you have to run behind banks, but when you grow large, they run behind you. Okay. Like they will give you a relationship manager. You don't even have to step into the bank after that. That way, so they will keep giving you everything possible loan. So that's where this largeness is very important. Okay. As business, you have to keep growing. I think once you grow to a certain extent, I think like the way people will look at you is very different. Okay, so I think so that is an important virtue you will need to have. So that is why this thing of scale is very important in that sense in any business. So whatever we are doing, see to it that how fast we keep growing as such, and the scope. Third comes the depth. Okay, so whatever we do, it is very, very important that we don't compromise on quality that way. Okay, delivering well is extremely important. I think so. From the business point of view, I think scale, scope, depth is very, very critical. From the institutional point of view, as I said, like right from day one, I think like again, what really helped us to grow was the kind of investment we made in people. I think most people, when they take somebody, they will say, my cost to company, this person costs so much. I always say that I think it's a wrong way of looking at it. Okay. If we take somebody, I think we need to really look at it as an investment. that way. So whatever we do for people, it is an investment. I remember those days, 93, 94. Every year, we used to have something called an institutional meet where all the senior people, we used to take off 3 days, go to a resort and, brainstorm what needs to happen and what we need to do and things. And people used to say, what is this? Such a small company spending so much money on all these kind of things. I honestly feel, looking back now, it was not spending, it was investment. Okay, that really helped us. Our top team, I think, like, was so stable and emotionally connected that way. And that's very, very important as such. So I think this kind of investment right from the beginning is very critical for any business. So, in terms of growing the institution, I think there are three words again: vision, mission, values. Okay, these three again words are very important for any entrepreneur. I think any entrepreneur who does not have a vision, because we need to, short term goals can only take you to a certain extent. It is a long term vision that will really help us in the long run that way. Okay, some kind of a vision I think we should have, and we should have a shared vision. It can't be just one person. I think if, as a group, if we can have a shared vision, I think it's that much easier for us to really. So, morning, sir. I can see Ashok.
Morning.
Morning.
Yeah, sorry, there was some network problem. I could not join. Okay,
Sir.
please
Nice.
go ahead. Please go
Okay.
ahead.
So, yeah, so vision is extremely critical, I think, for any entrepreneur that way. Okay. Because if you do not have a good long term vision, it's very difficult for the other members to be with you that way. I think it is growth that motivates people to be in an organization in that sense. Okay. So, a vision. Next is mission. Once you have a large vision as such, it's also important that you're able to see as to what you want to do specifically. Okay, so vision is something very large as such. What you can see that way. Mission is what you can do. Okay, so I think very clearly, as I said in MAFA, we said anything under HR we will do in that sense. Okay, so that was the mission with which we started out in that sense. Because as an entrepreneur, you will also come across various other opportunities. So it's important for you to really, certain things you need to say no. I think the greatest learning for an entrepreneur is how to say no, because many things will look very interesting. But then if we start doing everything, then you're dispersing your energy. Okay, so I think that focus need to be there. So something you really define as your mission, and then you start really moving towards it that way. So you start really having processes for that and things like that. And the third important thing is the value system. Okay, I think very important to define what value systems we have to really have right from the beginning. Okay, and I think in MAFA, what really helped us was just not only having values just written out there, we also engaged in an exercise of defining that value. Like, for instance, you say, like, yeah, we need to, integrity is a value. Okay, dignity is a value that way. But dignity is such a large word. Okay, so it's important in the context of our organization. How do we define dignity? What is dignity to MAFA? What is dignity to the people of MAFA? Define that. And the next most important step is to see that how do we embed them into our day-to-day operations. Okay, I'll give you an example. Like, dignity was one of our values. Okay, so we really defined what is dignity to MAFA. Like, for instance, we said, you remember at that point in time in the 90s and all that, we used to have system of attender, peon, and all that. Okay, now it's very less, but it used to be very, very high at that point in time. So very clearly we defined there will be no peons or attenders in our system. Okay, so right from the beginning, even the people who join at low levels, we used to call them assistant so and so or assistant officer, so that with the idea that we will groom them Okay, so you take a graduate, they don't remain a peon or an assistant throughout that way. Okay, so you groom them so that, like, like we've had many of our receptionists who have become HR managers today that way. Okay, so there is no peon attender concept at all. Okay, so that's in our view is dignity that way, giving dignity to a human being. And another example of dignity is we always define saying that, of course, as you know, like recruitment business was our business. And we'll have candidates coming to our office. And we used to very clearly say any candidate who walks into MAFA should not be waiting for more than half an hour. Okay, after 15-20 minutes, a consultant, even though he may have come to meet a particular consultant, and we'll say even though the consultant is busy, somebody has to walk out to the reception, meet the candidate, and tell them that, I'm sorry, I'll come and meet you in another 15 minutes or half an hour. Okay, that's courtesy. Okay, so we used to define that and say nobody should be waiting without meeting a single MAFA person for more than half an hour. If that has happened, the receptionist has to really tell us that, this person was waiting, the consultant did not come out. It will get recorded that way. Okay, so because for us, I think making a candidate wait for such a long time without anybody attending to them is really not really treating them in a dignified manner. Okay, they are human beings. They've come for a certain reason to the organization. So I think it is important not only just say dignity that way, but to define dignity and define dignity to your context that way. In your organization, what does it mean? Because if we do that well, then value systems will percolate down easily. Otherwise, what most of the times it happens is value systems will remain only with top management. People will talk about it, but it will not happen down below. Okay, so same thing with, we used to have professionalism, we used to have growth as a value. Okay, so many of these things, what does it mean to the context as such? I think that really, I think, was something like a differentiator for us. I still remember, and anybody who joined MAFA, wherever they were in the country, I know we used to have an induction, and within 2 months of wherever time they joined, and we used to have a 1 week induction in Chennai, I remember. And in fact, half a day we used to spend on values, making them understand through role plays and things like that. Okay, so I think it is very, very important that I think, so whatever values you may have, different value system, that's okay. But it's important for you to define what those values are and really create a context around it in that sense. Okay, like integrity, we used to say, like, a process integrity, financial integrity. Okay, so in a process, probably at times, like, you may skip a certain process, like, and not do something. We used to say, that's okay, that's at least pardonable. But financial integrity is not pardonable. Even 1 rupee, if we see there's some embezzlement or something has not happened well, the person is off, he's out of the organization. Okay, so where is it, what is it, what is considered to be okay in the organization, what is considered not to be not okay in the organization? I think if you can spell it out easily, then as you are growing, it becomes much easier, because down below on the ground, the person has to understand what you're saying in that sense. Okay, so I think, like, vision, mission, values, I think in our view, I think that's what really held the institution together. As I said, we have so many, we call them ambassadors of MAFA that way, actually. Okay, so I think it was really, really important for us. I mean, many people have, worked with us, walked this journey with us, and even left us because, they wanted to go and experience a different system. And I mean, I've always said it's perfectly fine when they have to really go. I think they should go with grace. It doesn't matter. They have to grow in a different ambience. Okay, so I think growing both business and institution together is very important, I think. And especially for an entrepreneur, only then, I mean, as an entrepreneur, you will also learn many things of letting go. Okay, because many entrepreneurs I've seen, they will do everything well, but beyond a few years, I mean, you cannot do everything. You will have to have a team. So you will need to know when to let go, what part of your business to let go. Okay, have someone else come and help you out. And I've always seen that, especially even in the top management, we need to have people who can complement each other. Okay, each one comes with a certain competency that way. Okay, certain things some people will do well, certain things some people will not do well. Okay, and even us as an entrepreneur, it's not that we will have every quality with us. Okay, because everything is important. Sales is important, planning is important, execution is important, people management is important, everything is important in a business, and everything has to go hand in hand that way. And if to make that happen, we need to have a team that is very complementary that way. Okay, helping each other grow. Okay, so it's very important that as an entrepreneur we understand first what our strengths and weaknesses are. Okay, and very quickly see that we are able to get somebody who can complement that strength. Okay, so that happens in the initial years quickly, then I think growth happens much faster that way. Okay, so I think, yeah, Mafa, I think we grew fast. I mean, financially, I think, as I said, initially it was very difficult. We actually, many of our friends and relatives supported us, and we had given equity to them. That's what she meant when I said 60%. We gave them returns and things like that. And people now call it crowdfunding. Okay, that's what we did, but we didn't know it was called crowdfunding, honestly. Okay, so we actually took money from many of our well-wishers, and that's how the company grew till 2000, when we took venture capital money. That we were the first in our industry to take venture capital. 2000 only, even the name venture capital came into being. And again, as an entrepreneur, it's very important that we take risks. Okay, I think if you need to grow fast, you need to take risks. Some of the things may be new, and some things probably not everything. In fact, even in Mafa, not everything what we did really, was successful. Sometimes, like, we really also burnt our fingers. Like, for instance, in 2000, we took the venture capital money, and that was the dot-com boom, if you remember. And so we also thought, like, we'll invest some money into the .com side. We created Mafa.com. We created 6 different portals. Okay, each for different, like a psychoprofiling and recruitment and career related, and so many. And 1 year down the line, of course, we spent a lot of money. We suddenly realized by the time Naukri was there, and Naukri's entire model was built on a tech platform that way. And so we suddenly realized, I don't think so. That is our forte. That is our strength. Okay, our strength was, directly meeting candidates, what they call it, the brick and mortar model. Okay, so the real, because I think Mafa as a company was a very people-driven company. Okay, for us, emotions were very important. Needed to see clearly how people were growing and doing things. So I think then after a year or so, we quickly, like, retracted, and we said, no, let's not get into the tech platform building, but that's a different kind of business. Okay, they used to call it the click and mortar at that time. So I think, like, yeah, so some of these things, I think, as entrepreneurs, I think we need to take risks, definitely that way. But at the same time, we also need to know how quickly we can get back. Okay, so we need to have people really advising us. Our board used to be strong right from the beginning. I think we never compromised on governance issues that way. Okay, right from the beginning, we had, because again, another thing, as entrepreneurs, initially when we are growing, we look at it in a very narrow sense, and we don't invite people from outside. We are not comfortable. But I think right from the first year, we used to have a board which had external people, some friends, some professionals that way. So that, like, and every 3 months we used to properly have our board meetings, and share transparently what was happening in the organization. And that really helped us, because people from outside gave a different perspective to the whole system that way. I think, yeah, some of these issues, I think, are very, very important for the growth of the organization. Okay, so people, governance, vision, values that way. And yeah, I think like, so some of these things quickly helped us to grow. Okay, so 2000, we took venture capital. 2004, I think like we went into a strategic partnership with this company called Vedior, okay, which helped us to really have offices all over the world. We had almost around 24 offices around the world that way. Okay, so I think this really helped us. We also, as Vidya said, I think we had our MAFA Foundation very quickly. Right from the first year, we started something called a Swarnamal Trust to help kids in the Sivakasi belt. At that time, a lot of child labor and things like that. So I think our only aim was to really see how to help the kids to start going to school. And I think we successfully created a model for that, and we rolled it out there. And of course, MAFA Foundation. I think we worked with many corporation schools and rural schools, and we've had very interesting programs. Of course, we have had a scholarship program where we support kids who are very poor. And today, I think many of them have taken jobs. More than 6,000 kids we've supported. They have taken jobs. They are working in big companies. And so, I mean, we do this under this brand called Disha, under the program called Disha. So we call them the Disha scholars. So today our Disha community is very large in that sense. And we have a program called Gems of Disha. So I still remember, very interesting. I was working with almost 40 odd corporation schools, many of them in North Chennai. And I think one of the days a principal called me and said there are a lot of NGOs who work for kids who are studying well, but I think people don't really pay attention to kids who don't study well that way. Okay, so we did a small research in North Chennai and figured out that many of these kids, especially in the adolescent age, when they are not studying well, and when you're coming from that background as such, I mean, they are heaped with so much negatives that way. Okay, and I mean, all the parents also will keep on hitting them, and because they are also not studying well, they are very naughty, and the teachers also don't like kids who don't study well. And we found that some of these kids run away from home, or they start smoking, drinking at a very early age that way, and they'll sit and play carom and cards and things like that. And I always say, like, and we'll call them social evils, but I always feel we create, society creates, because all kids are precious. All children are very nice, very good that way. And if they are really, I mean, growing into something like that, I think society needs to take responsibility for it in that sense. And so we rolled out a program called Gems of Disha. I remember still 4 corporation schools we took 15 kids from 8th standard, the last 15 in the class, and we created a model of mentoring for them that way. So we had mentors, and we created mentors from the same schools, kids who studied from the same school, who were doing college. So we brought them back, we used to, as Anna, Rakka, whatever it is, because we found those kids will relate to them very well, in that sense, much better than they relate to you and me, because they'll speak the same language. So we brought them back. We used to give those kids stipend. Okay, I remember at that time it's 1,500 per month, which is big money for those kids. We used to call them social educators that way. So they came back to teach these kids, listen to the kids. In fact, we always say 8th standard, that year you just listen, because most of the time these kids don't have somebody who will listen to them that way. And so just listen to them, then start really, mentoring them little by little, because some of them will have tremendous skills. They'll sing, they'll dance well, and all that. So, hone the skills well. And in the 10th standard, we used to start really slowly teaching them. And I still remember very happily the kids, when 8th standard, when I meet them, they'll say, how many marks? I'll say 5 marks, 6 marks in maths, and things like that, And in 10th standard, the first batch, I remember 60 kids, 50 from 4 schools. They gave the 10th standard exam. I think even for my own kids, I wasn't so nervous when the results were coming out. And out of 60, 52 passed. I think that was a great moment I will never ever forget in my life. It was a kind of a validation for whatever we were doing. And today, of course, all the kids are in college doing very well. Even the kids who failed, we put them through a vocational training program, and they are now earning well and things like that. So I think it's very important because that particular age is very critical. I think that adolescent age, and I think if we can mold them well at that age, I think, completely it's a transformational program as such. So yeah, that's part of the foundation. Of course, I've worked with, as she said, more than 60,000 women, rural areas, semi-urban areas, training them, tailoring, artificial jewelry making, RE work, many things. And I think the greatest thing I've always felt is the self-help group movement in India is a great movement that way, like it was in Bangladesh, because I think it has given women, especially, rural women and all, a space more than to learn to express themselves, come together, share their sorrows, joys, and, learn something. And they feel so valued after learning some skill as such. And some of the women I've met have been extremely enterprising that way. I mean, it doesn't matter what strata people come from, but it is that spirit and enterprise which is there. I think, like, which is there in many, many people that way. So, and yeah, foundation has really helps kids, especially in sports, because I always believe, I think there has to be holistic development of a child. And today, many a times, like, many kids are missing out on that way. And so as much as academics is important, sports is important. And I think it's also, especially for kids from a certain strata, like I said, like, we worked very heavily in North Chennai, where there's a huge need, and we've really trained kids in boxing and football. And it's been, kids have really picked it up so well, because I think it also gives them a place to express themselves. Okay, it's a little bit of, it's an aggression, but they are able to take out their things in that sport as such, and they learn a lot in a sport. So I think, as Vidya said, I think we've had a lot of national champions, especially in boxing, from our kids as such. And it's been a very, very heartening experience, a journey that way, seeing these kids blossom as such. So yeah, that's been the foundation. So I think, like, corporate life and social life has gone hand in hand for both of us that way. And that's when I think also, the next step happened, and Pandirajan decided that, I think, if we have to make a difference in a mass scale, I think you need to have a political will. I still remember during one of the, I mean, moments when we were talking, when I was talking to a woman that, about higher education for her daughter and things like that. He said, all that is fine. In Tamil, very nice Tamil. She said, Amma, எல்லாம் okay. But எங்களுக்கு வந்து லைக் இங்க சாக்கடை வந்து அடைக்குது, ரோடு இல்ல, இதெல்லாம் வந்து நீங்க போட்டு கொடுக்க முடியுமா அப்படின்ட்டு she very nicely asked. I think very practical question. Okay, so that's when I think, like, we decided, yeah, whatever it may be, I think to really make a difference to the mass and to really give them basic infrastructure, I think we need to have a political will that way. I think so. That's when, of course, like, he decided to go and contest and things like that. And of course, that's a different story. And so I think, yeah, I must say, like, by God's grace, I think whatever it is, I think we've learned, I mean, I've experienced all three worlds, the corporate world, the social world, and the political world as such. And I think all three are different. They work on different paradigms that way, but interesting, I think, in its own way. I think more than anything else today, if people ask me in one line, if you say, what was it, what you did and what you learned, I always say, I mean, it's been a very meaningful journey that way, with all its ups and downs. Got to see the real bulk of the population, because most of the times, I think the privileged, most of us are privileged that way. I think we sit and we really interact with only 10 to 15% of the population. 80 to 85% of the population lives in the rural areas and semi-urban areas. And at least, I feel blessed that, I got to see the reality. and really experience what it is, to really experience that reality of life. So that's been the MAFA journey. And of course, like as she said, like we sold our stakes when Pandirajan moved into politics. We also thought like it was time that we need to really um, reconfigure our lives, and it was good that 20 years as such. And then of course, like we sold our stakes to Randstad at that point in time, and yeah, moved out, and we started a consulting organization. And after 3 years, we had a non-compete. So now we are back into recruitment for the last 5 years in the name of CLHR, because we can't do recruitment in the name of MAFA, because when we sold to Randstad. And now MAFA, we do recruitment in the name of CL for the last, again, I think most of the ex-MAFA group is back, and again, growing quite well. Probably, I think recruitment is there in our blood that way. So that's the thing which really entices us quite a bit. And the team which used to really handle many things for us are back. And CL again is a French word meaning sky that way. So sky is the limit. So last year we closed with almost 280 crores, and I think like it's growing well. We have more than 10,000 deputies now, and spread across the country. And consulting, in terms of HR consulting, we just got into the space of ed tech. We've been working with colleges, especially tier 2, tier 3 colleges, to equip students, because I feel again, from 92, we've been hearing of this word employability gap. And with the kind of young population India has, I think it is very critical that we crack this employability gap as such. And I think it has really actually become larger, in my view, in the last 3 decades I have seen. So I think now with so much of digital happening and things like that, and with the kind of experience we've had understanding the corporate world as to what is their requirement, how their requirement keeps changing. Because I've seen myself, for any one person to be recruited, we would have seen at least 20 to 30 people, so that's the kind of conversions that are there. So I think our now new endeavors to see as to how do we reduce this employability gap, to see how we can equip our students, especially tier 2, tier 3 students, and see how do we really equip them for job roles that will be there in the future. And if you see every person, a big four, whether it's PwC or Deloitte or anybody like that, has predicted that within the next few years, 5 to 7 years, 60% of our job roles will change. Okay, so that's the way things are moving. The pace at which things are changing around us is unbelievable that way. Okay, so the digital revolution, as you may call it. So I think so it's important that we are able to really give our students the right kind of skills, so that they will be gainfully employed. Otherwise, it's underemployment. Okay, today you can see graduates going and delivering things today. So that's how it will happen. So I think we are calling it MAFA Etude. And Etude again is a French word, which means education. So that's the latest baby, I may call it that way, and in the MAFA family. And Etude is mainly going to be working in the employability space with college students to see how do we equip them and really put them in the right jobs as such. And yeah, just a few minutes on COVID thing and all that. And yeah, all of us know, I think it's been a very, very challenging time for anybody. I think you know very well the kind of slump that has happened in GDP. And so I think, in my view, 3 things are very, very important, especially at this point in time. I think survival. I think if I had to put it very simply, I think you have to first survive, then revive, then thrive. Okay, very easy to remember, but I think like that's the important call of the day today. Okay, because I think if you cannot survive, any business, you need to live to be in the game. We know that well. Okay, so for any entrepreneur today, a small entrepreneur, I think survival is very, very important. Seeing to that, like holding the employees together, okay, communicating them. And I think like, because the greatest danger when any crisis hits us is not the crisis itself, but I think most of the time we always operate with the old logic. And today, I think, especially with COVID, I think things are changing. I mean, you yourself can see today we are having work from home, study from home, and people buying, shopping online that way. Okay, so delivery mechanisms have completely changed. Okay, so many things have changed. Everything is online. Everything today we are meeting on a Zoom. Okay, I'm sure like a few months back, everything was face to face. And today, like, we are pushed into a different kind of a world. Okay, and that's reality that way. So I think it is important that we really understand how to survive this first. And then, of course, I mean, in this survival phase, of course, as people say, cash is king. Being frugal is very important that way. Okay, so that like we can hold ourselves together and keep at least our head above water. Okay, so that's extremely critical, because even now we've not had the vaccine. Okay, we don't know when the vaccine will come. Till such time, I think there will be these spikes that will happen around the world as such in terms of COVID. So I think it looks like a science fiction movie, but that's what is true. Okay, so I think like it is very important that we clearly keep our head above water. Then, of course, look at revival. Okay, so what is it we need to do? As I said, I think the world is moving towards digital that way. And even before COVID, we were talking about industry 4.0, what is happening, everything is getting automated. Okay, so how do we really move in this automated world as such? So I think it is very critical that we really look at revival that way. Okay, how do we reimagine everything? Okay, it's very important that new ways of looking at things that way. I remember 1966 World Cup football. I think Brazil lost that way. Okay, Brazil had won the previous two, and they lost this World Cup. And Pele, who was, everybody was expecting the best out of him and all that, and he performed so badly, and they got wiped out in the first two rounds itself. And so everybody had suddenly written off Brazil. But in the next World Cup, they came back to again win. And I remember one of, Pele's interviews, he said, like, we completely reimagined everything that way. Okay, way of doing things and the aggressive style. Okay, they completely changed their style. So I think like a revival at this point in time would mean reimagining. I think people who can quickly, that's why they say people who are agile are the ones who will be able to really quickly move into the next phase now that way. And there have been lots of examples during crisis, like especially US was hit by the financial crisis 2008 2009. I think companies which could adapt and quickly move and grew so fast in the next 10 years. Okay, and that's true of even World War II afterwards. If you really see, Germany and Japan were completely crashed after that World War II. But within 3 decades, both the countries could really come up quickly because they really completely looked at, it was like reinvention and reimagination. Okay, so I think as entrepreneurs, we need to do it. We need to see what will really sell, because many things have changed around us. The sales models have changed, consumer behavior has changed. Okay, customer expectations have changed. Okay, today people want it at your doorstep because they've got used to it. Somebody delivering it to you. As such, nobody wants to go and buy and come. The younger generation are quite comfortable that way. Okay, so we need to really understand what is the customer behavior which has changed that way. Okay, so your logistics, your delivery, the supply chain, everything has to be really designed so that it caters to the existing needs. Okay, so that's revival. And if that happens, obviously, like, thriving will become much better that way. And as I said, if you are there to really capture that opportunity, okay, then obviously, like, as I said, sky is the limit. There will be lots of new opportunities that will emerge that way. Okay, so they call it disruption. They call it disruption. Like, actually, the word disruption itself has a very negative connotation. Okay, it means like, some kind of disturbance and all that, if you see the dictionary. But in 1995, this gentleman in US called Clayton Christensen actually made the word disruption positive in business. Okay, he really talked about some business idea which completely changes the model of business. Okay, that is how we have, they called it the disruptive innovation. Okay, some new idea which completely changes market paradigm. Okay, and examples like Netflix, examples like your Apple. Okay, when it came out with iTunes. Okay, that was disruptive innovation. Okay, nobody ever thought, I mean, you listen to music in a mobile that way. Okay, it completely killed the music industry. There was, I think, Sony, if you remember, at one time, it completely it just got killed. Okay, same way with Kodak, at mobile, I mean, photography. Okay, that was again a disruption. Okay, and even this aggregation like Uber, okay, your Ola, Oyo, Airbnb, you can have examples of many kinds. Okay, and I'm sure this crisis, as Albert Einstein said, every crisis will have an opportunity, will give rise to opportunity. This crisis too will give rise to many, many opportunities. Okay, and many, many disruptive innovations will happen. And if we are there to really be able to see that and capture that, I'm sure, like, I think we can really thrive in this atmosphere. So that's very shortly, I think, what we need to do with the COVID-19 disruption, and especially in terms of business. So let's first really survive, then revive, and then thrive. And so all the best to all of you for really being, for thriving. Okay, as entrepreneurs, I think, as I said, we should always dream big and think large that way. Okay, and if we are able to do that and create a solid organization, when I say solid organization, with a vision, with people investing in them that way, and building that, and being there, right there to really capture opportunities, because opportunities will not keep knocking all the time. Okay, so you need to be ready to really capture the opportunity, and if we are there at the right time, we will be able to do that well. So that's yeah, that's the story of Mafa, and that's what I think, like, we need to do at this point in time. So thank you, Vidya. So I can take questions, or I don't know how the flow is.
Yeah,
So we'll go
ma'am.
with the
Ma'am,
flow.
ரொம்ப excellent இருந்துச்சு. ரொம்ப excellent இருந்துச்சு. Chance இல்ல. We wanted to, everyone wants to meet you actually. I'm getting a lot of messages in WhatsApp. Everyone are saying like it's really, really good session, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Points,
Thank
every single line is so valid, ma'am. So valid. It's helping us, everyone. We'll look forward again to meet you personally, ma'am.
Sure, 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 Vidya.
So
Sure.
I just invite Mr. Ashok sir. Sir,
Yeah, I do agree with yeah, welcome, Lata.
Thank
It
you.
was
Thank you, sir.
a very wonderful session. I have been an ardent admirer and a fan of Pandya Rajan. Now I have become a fan of you too. After this spellbound session, you have made everyone. And Vidya has been inviting many guest speakers every week. I would easily say yours is the best.
Thank you.
So I'm a fan of you too. Within that half an hour, you have compressed, touched upon every aspect of life so beautifully, the management aspects, the vision, mission, values, and so beautifully you have explained. I think this is a great input for all the participants. I really thank you, and it's a great honor being a founder of a world-class HR company, FWC, to get associated with you, and looking forward that this young team of FWC will go and seek your guidance and support, and build it into a global networking company. And we as FWC, our mission is to build the global communities as we are going towards individualistic pattern, and then we want to bring in a kind of sharing and caring philosophy. As community, we all come together and support each other. I think during this COVID, it is very, very relevant because we have to collaborate on our strengths. And you have beautifully articulated all the aspects of management, and we are looking forward to, as a FWC, to collaborate with you or get guidance to, because as I told you, ours is a very young team, touching upon agriculture, education, and healthcare. These are our three major verticals, and we want to create entrepreneurs on these areas. With so many jobs going away and millions of people in crisis, uh, I think the way forward is only to make self-employed. So I want some more tips or how you can throw some more light, because uh, people are depressed and they lost their jobs, and the sure way is to upskill, or how it can be done, because I see so much of people negativity around us now, and you see almost the GDP has gone. We are one of the lowest now in the scene in the decades, because this is a tough time for all. Transforming into, and because our mindset has been to only for look for jobs. So as first world community, we want to bring about that shift of consciousness, how it can be brought. And with a little, with this question, I will open the floor to others. And I thank you for a wonderful session. And I will please encourage our young team of led by Vidya, and she will be coming more often and taking your time. Thank you, Lata, for
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
really, it's an honor for us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And yeah, I do understand, as you said, like, these are very testing times. And so also because, like, I think we've never dealt with a crisis of this kind. And it's not only us, it's globally, I think that's what is true. But as I said, right now, I think survival is important. And as you said, I think mass entrepreneurship is very, very critical for our country. A country like ours with 1.3 billion population, I think it's important that many of us think that, we need to really find how do we really manage this mass entrepreneurship. I don't know if some of you, I know, sir, if you know, like we did this event called Startup Tamil Nadu 2020. I'm director in an organization called Native Lead. That way you can go, especially in Tamil Nadu, people who are there can actually Google and see. So Native Lead was set up a few years back, mainly with the focus of creating mass entrepreneurship. And idea is to really create an entrepreneurship ecosystem in tier 2, tier 3 towns, basically. Because I think the good thing about COVID is, like, it is, getting people back to their roots. Like, people today, IT guys are going back to their hometowns and working from there because of technology and all that. And so even in Native Lead, what we thought even a few years back is, like, we should really address this migration coming into urban areas and things like that, and struggling. So if we are able to create even small jobs in their own spaces there, wherever they are, I think that's the best form of mass entrepreneurship. And in fact, like in Native Lead, we started something called Startup Tamil Nadu. Idea for, in fact, I've come up with something called Ayiram Pookal Malarittum. That is, in the next 10 years, we will have 1,000 entrepreneurs from tier 2, tier 3 towns in Tamil Nadu, basically. And so we're working towards it. So this year, like, we had supported a few of them. At least around 15 to 16 entrepreneurs have been supported, like even with funds, small time funds. It's like an angel investment kind of a thing, anywhere between 50 lakhs to a crore kind of a thing, from different investors. Investors can put in even 2 lakhs or 5 lakhs or whatever it is. So we've created a model around that. So maybe like sometime later I can even talk about it that way. But yeah, so this is something like which we are planning to also do as such. And
thank you, Lata. It was wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
I just call a couple of them, wanted to ask you a few questions, ma'am.
Yeah, sure.
Kalivani, ma'am.
Yes, yes.
Ma'am, she's here. You can call, ask her directly. Like two
Yeah.
minutes. Have, ma'am. Yeah, we'll run fast.
Okay.
Presentations also.
Thank you, Ma. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Brother, Ashok brother.
Yeah.
ஒரே ஒரு வார்த்தை எதுக்காக நான் கேட்டேன் தெரியுங்களா?
Yeah, சொல்லுங்க.
லதா வந்து என்னுடைய 15 years முன்னாடி FWCல she is we are friends. அந்த சமயத்துல பார்த்த லதாக்கும் இந்த சமயத்துல பார்க்கிற லதாக்கும் பெரிய வித்தியாசம் என்னன்னா so much she developed. ஒரே ஒரு வார்த்தை சொல்ல விரும்புற எல்லா விமன் என்டர்பிரினர்ஸ்க்கும் சரி ஜென்ஸ் என்டர்பிரினர்ஸ்க்கும் சரி அவங்களுடைய படிப்புல இருந்து நம்ம வாழ்க்கையில வந்து தொழில் செய்யணும்னு நினைக்கிறோம். ஆனா வந்து அது மாதிரி வாழ்க்கையே உயர்த்தது ஒவ்வொருத்தருக்கும் வாழ்க்கை கொடுக்குதுன்றது லதா மூலியமா தான் நான் தெரிஞ்சுக்கிறேன். குழந்தைங்களுக்கு வேலை இல்லாத அந்த காலத்துல 92லயே பாருங்க யூனிக் தாட் அவங்க கிட்ட கிடைச்சது. அதனால அவங்க கிடைச்ச அந்த தாட்ல இவங்க எவ்வளவு தூரம் டிராவல் பண்ணியிருக்காங்க. எல்லாமே குட் திங்ஸ். ஒன்னும் என் சாப்பாட்டுக்கு நானும் பண்ணவே இல்லை, அதர்ஸ்க்காகவே வாழ்ந்திருக்காங்க. அதனால நம்ம லதாவுடைய கிடைச்சது பெரிய இது. வித்யாக்கும் பாலாக்கும் நான் ரொம்ப தேங்க் பண்ணணும் இதுக்கு, இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு பொட்டன்ஷியல் பீப்புளை கொண்டு வந்ததுக்கு.
இவங்களோட நான் பெஸ்டா எப்படி தேட போறேன்னு தெரியல இப்போ. தட்ஸ் a big question mark இப்போ.
நிறைய பேர் இருக்காங்க. Thank you,
பெரிய question mark. Yeah. Miss Sartaj, are you online? Like you wanted to post some questions.
Yeah, hi. Vidya, I've already sent the questions to.
Yes, if you can ask her directly, if you wanted to, like.
Yeah, I would.
Yes, please. Yes.
Hi, Lata.
Hi, Sartaj. Tell me, Sartaj.
Hi, how are you doing? And a very nice session. Very nice.
Thank you so much.
And I would like to thank Mr. Mohan for introducing me to this WC. And I'm from Chandigarh, from North India. So this is a cultural mix from North and South, between North and South.
Very nice.
So I really wanted to ask you, like you being from the HR,
yeah.
So you actually knew who's the right person for the job, as you say, the members in your team, plus the people that you were hiring. What about an individual entrepreneur who single-handedly works together to scale up the business or to have members worthwhile of association? How do we focus on that first?
Yeah.
And the second question is, what do venture capitalists actually look for in a company?
Yeah, the first one as such, Sartaj, I think like I honestly, this word like single-handedly, I mean, I always differ. I don't think so. Like, you know, anything can happen in, single-handedly. Okay, you need support in whatever way, that way. I think today, I think if I'm successful, I think there's so many people behind me, okay, helping me in many ways that way. So I've always really followed that philosophy. And yeah, I think initial days, you need to figure out who will really, as I said, it's very critical to really locate that person who will complement you, okay, complement your strengths. And so that part of it, obviously, like you'll need to really do that. But once you grow a little, obviously, like, you know, getting the right person, you can always engage a good HR company who will really be able to really see what you have to really see. Most of the times I've seen entrepreneurs, when they come and give us positions, their vision is very limited. Okay, they are not able to express clearly what they want that way. Okay, so I think it is important that we need to articulate, we need to know exactly where we want to go. Okay, only then you can really put people in your bus. Okay, so I think that clarity, I think as an entrepreneur, is very important. I'm not saying that, as I said, everything what you do may not be really turning out right. But I think if we have the conviction that this is where we are going, then we can really, you know, put more people into our bus that way. But I think as a driver, we need to drive it. Okay, and at least for a few years initially. After that, of course, as I said, like, you know, you need to put systems in place which can drive things by itself. Okay, and for the second one, venture capitalist, I think today Of course, venture capitalists, most of the venture capital will ask for huge returns. Okay, today people ask for at least 30-35% returns.
35%.
The pure venture capitalists really ask for that. Okay, but it depends. There are today a lot of social impact investments. It depends on what kind of business you're doing that way. So social impact funds, a lot of them do not really look for that kind of a return. And there is something called patient capital. Okay, so people who will wait for a longer time for you to do well. Otherwise, normally venture capitalists will want to turn you around in 5 years that way. Okay, so I think, and there's something called seed capital, there's something called venture capital, then angel investment. See, today that world has really widened. Okay, and you have funds specifically for different industries. So I think also getting into forums of different kinds is very important for an entrepreneur, in my view. Okay, whether it's CII, whether it's, management associations, chambers of commerce, because information is key. Many times we really don't know the information. Okay, so suddenly you'll realize, oh, that person has got funding at such a low rate. How did it happen? Okay, so I think it is critical as entrepreneur that we are part of forums, we are able to network, we are able to understand what's happening around us, where, what kind of capital is really available. Okay, it can be from banks, it can be from other lending institutions, it can be from venture capital. That way, I think this connect is what will really help, Satyaj, honestly. Okay, so I think
Yeah, but I myself lead the women wing of PhD Chamber of Commerce in
Yeah.
Haryana and in Punjab.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've been a member with PhD, CII, and lot many forums.
Yeah.
So also Sherry Blair Forum from London. I'm a mentor also with that. But there is a huge disparity between what women entrepreneurs generally face is that the IT sector,
Yeah.
reliability, and the staffing. That is an issue, how to connect them. So probably I will have you.
Yeah, sure. I think Vidya has my number and all that. You can just connect with me. And in fact, as I said, CL has its offices in the north also. We'll try and definitely help you.
Not only me, there are many women entrepreneurs. So we'll ask you to speak. We'll
Sure,
ask you to speak
Connect
over
with
here. Thank you.
Done,
Satyaj.
done.
Definitely
Definitely
connect.
done.
Definitely
Sure, will do.
we'll work
Yeah.
together on this. We are